All right, welcome. It is 5 o'clock, Monday, July 15th, 2024. This is a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cape Girardeau. Thank you all for being in attendance here tonight. We will begin the meeting with an invocation by Pastor Zach Strong of Christ Church of the Heartland here in Cape Girardeau, and then follow that with our Pledge of Allegiance. If you all would please rise and join us.
Good evening. Let's pray. Father, thank you for a great day. Thank you for your love and grace and your mercy that you're always showing to us. Thank you for this incredible city, God, and community you have given us to live in. And I thank you tonight for the men and women, God, that you have positioned to help lead and guide, that we may lead quiet and peaceful and prosperous lives. So tonight, even in this meeting, Lord, I pray that your wisdom will shine out. I pray that the harmony among all that is going on will be here, Lord, for the betterment of our community. So tonight, we just give you thanks, we give you praise, and we give you honor for this great city in Jesus' name. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, tonight we will begin with our study session. We do have one presentation during that time, and I will begin with a bit of an explanation, if I may. Over the past 10 years, the City of Cape has embarked on a plan to renovate the water treatment facility that provides clean water to our city. Following a comprehensive evaluation of needs laid out by Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley in 2022, the city began working on that plan, and we've recently authorized the purchase of over $9 million in renovations to the plant that need to happen immediately to keep our water supply here clean. Based on that evaluation and others, the city has determined to renovate parts of the plan rather than to scrap our current plant and build an entirely new one for multiple reasons. If the city were ever to change course and decide an entirely new plant was needed, a new evaluation would need to be done, and requests for proposals would have to be advertised and put out to qualified construction companies in a competitive bidding process. And that is all clearly laid out in state statute and city policy. One company called MI2 Operating Systems has engaged the city administration in a discussion about creating a new water treatment facility and has asked to make a presentation today on their ideas. And so we will now hear from representatives of MI2 Operating Systems. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Paul. And if we can get the slides up here. Good evening. I'm Jim Riley, and with me is Paul McKee. We'll have introductions, but we're here tonight to propose consideration of a fresh perspective on the way we handle this very important endeavor that will affect the next several generations in our city. So we have a proposed partnership for sustainable quality water, a fresh perspective on infrastructure improvements, the funding of capital improvements, and maximizing operational efficiencies. With me tonight is Paul McKee, the CEO of MPS and MI2. Also, we have Glenn Mitchell, the president of MPS. MPS is the construction company that couples with MI2 when capital improvements are necessary. MI2 is the operating system. MPS is the design, build, and operational end of the arrangement. Jeff Mummert is with us. He's the vice president. He's an operations man when it comes to water. Jessica Gallion is a CPA for both of our companies. And also with us tonight are the CMT engineers who are responsible for the costing of both the improvements that have been discussed and some of which have been approved by the city. And also we work very closely with CMT to provide our alternate set of solutions here tonight. Briefly, we'll have some, oh, thanks, Paul. I can handle that.
No, you're right.
So Amanda Withers is with us from CMT, and also Bill Brown. So we have two of the engineers with CMT. longtime partners with the city who have helped us provide and develop our proposals here tonight. Some quick introductions and qualifications. I'm a longtime Cape Girardeau advocate. I have a couple of businesses here, Red Letter Communications and Element 74. But for the last 25 years have voluntarily helped out with city initiatives such as the fire sales tax. Our city's finest are here tonight, represented. The internet use sales tax, a variety of initiatives. I worked with Kevin Priester, who was the longtime Alliance manager when we put together the Discovery Playhouse. So we've been involved in many initiatives. Professionally, I had a hand in recruiting the casino to Cape Girardeau. And I owned the land for a long time and worked very closely with Isla Capri, actually recruited Isla Capri, and then worked very closely to win the license. I say that because that was 15 years ago. And when that happened, we wanted the casino to be a catalyst for widespread development in Cape Girardeau. Use it as a catalyst. And I didn't know much about widespread development. And so I inquired, and a friend told me, you need to meet Paul McKee. And I did. And that's how we began our association. Paul helped organize BJC. He was the chairperson of Christian Hospital and helped bring together BJC, which is Missouri's, I guess, largest employer and largest healthcare facility. He served as its chair for quite some time. He co-founded Perrick Construction, which is still a going concern. And I know Rhett has a background in large industrial construction projects, and he was very familiar with Perrick. And as MPS, which is his construction arm now, has developed Winghaven, which includes MasterCard's operations center and 3,000 jobs. Paul is responsible with Mr. Clark, his partner in St. Louis, for North Park with Express Scripts, plus an additional 1 million square feet under roof and 10,000 jobs. And the North Side Regeneration, which he and his wife Midge have been investing in for over 20 years in the North City of St. Louis. And recently, about 5 years ago, that project won the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency's New Western headquarters, and it's 7,000 jobs. It's a $1.75 billion project and probably 7,000 jobs. It's also a very tangible expression of the fourth industrial revolution, which we have entered and is going to influence the next 100 years of jobs. And I think it could mean a lot of good things for our community eventually. Continuing the introductions, M Property Services delivers capital, so they bring the capital for projects and manage design, build, and operations. A recent example of a project just completed is a new $120 million Ponce Health Sciences University at Ponce, Puerto Rico. The drawing there is for a concept for a building and a school similar in St. Louis that we hope to do. PHSU is open in St. Louis. We tried to bring them here. That's another story. But we worked very hard to try to bring that opportunity to Cape Girardeau. Concurrent to his work over the years, Paul created and operated EMC, the Environmental Management Corporation, a water, wastewater, and infrastructure services company. They had contracts in 80 communities, along with 12 different industrial sites. So these folks know water, they know operations, and they know construction of water plants. After the sale of EMC, Paul later founded MI2, and that's the company that's represented here tonight. Much smaller, but certainly has the same experience and resources that they gathered with their years at EMC. The situation currently for Cape Girardeau, the current city council and city leadership has inherited a long developing set of problems with our water system facility and infrastructure. Those of you that viewed the May 6th council meeting were very aware of sort of taken by surprise, perhaps, by the state of our facility and infrastructure. We've also got a relatively new but concerning situation, evidently, with our source water, with the water that's coming out of the ground. There's urgency to choose a path forward with important near and long-term consequences to the choices made now. The current proposed strategy, as the mayor said, was to continue to rely on the same evidently degenerating water source, utilizing the existing treatment techniques in place, and invest some $120 million over the next 22 years to remodel, re-equip, refurbish, and expand the existing 93-year-old facility and infrastructure, distribution infrastructure, and accept the high probability of increasing annual operations costs, labor, chemicals, power, maintenance, etc. I think we're at a major crossroads and an opportunity for a new path for consideration. To explore the possibility of a new, cleaner water source requiring less annual costs for treatment. We're talking about new wells that would require less chemicals, labor, energy, repair, and maintenance. Fully vet the financial viability and benefits of an all-new water treatment plant, and you'll see that referred to as WTP, built to suit our needs today and benefiting from modern technologies and techniques. We'd also like to propose conducting a scientific study of the existing distribution infrastructure in order to maximize efficiency and more confidently prioritize the inevitable repair and replacements that are going to happen. Also explore a public-private partnership for funding capital expenditures, including a management agreement inclusive of annual operating costs. This is a new approach, but it's happening all over the country. These public-private partnerships where cities leverage their assets to attract private investment and fund capital improvements rather than just rely on the collecting of rates. And the rates then pay down and pay back the investors, similar to a mortgage. Why are we in Cape Girardeau? Well, Rhett Pierce is a friend. I helped him with his campaign. He ran on the premise of the need for strong leadership as major infrastructure issues are addressed. He's got a lot of experience from the electrical side of building treatment plants and large commercial operations. And his premise of being strong leadership as major infrastructure issues are addressed was made clear at his second meeting, because at May 6th meeting, city staff and Alliance presented a somewhat alarming scenario around the 93-year-old plant, the condition of our water source, phrases like blue baby syndrome were used, and the state of our distribution infrastructure. The proposed solution set includes some $120 million worth of remodel, new equipment, et cetera. Okay. After this, we were asked to meet with Dr. Haskins and Mr. Pulley and Mr. Pierce to discuss an alternate solution. Dr. Haskins also at that time revealed another problem the council has inherited. That's our rate structure, which is far below the national average. And our city charter only allows for a 5% annual rate increase, which Dr. Haskins told us at that time will only cover the increases in operating costs. So we were asked to come down and take a look at the situation, which we did. And then MI2 and CMT over the next 2.5 weeks threw themselves into developing a fresh perspective and approach to be considered. So there we go.
There you go.
So on May 31st, and with significant input from CMT, MI2, and by the way, I'm a partner, a small partner in MI2. Let that be known. So I own a small part of the business. But when you're me and you've got 30 years invested in this community, I'm here as much as a Cape Girardeau advocate as I am a partner in MI2. It just was a natural connection for me to bring MI2 to the table. But I'm not the expert when it comes to the operational considerations or some. Paul and this other team, they're the experts. But in any case, we brought forth this new set of solutions, a proposed new water treatment plant benefiting from modern technologies and techniques, locating and drilling a new deep water well field to tap into new, cleaner source water, based on a comprehensive leak detection sound survey, select replacement and repair of the distribution system. So we want to do a very sophisticated sound survey of the water distribution infrastructure so that we can prioritize with confidence the repairs and and replacements that are inevitably needed. And also, we brought forward this option for a public-private partnership or concession agreement for financing the capital improvements. Now, in a concession agreement, the city would retain ownership of all infrastructure, but basically does a master lease with MPS, MI2, who would assume all risk for annual operating expenses. We have plenty of time for questions and answers, but this is a new approach. By the way, our proposal does not rely on a concession agreement. If the city wants to finance the new treatment plant and so forth, a management agreement can be worked out and the city can continue their financing. However, if we were to take it over with private funds, the 100 million plus would be available immediately. And so a lot of the improvements could be made quickly. Is a new water treatment plant feasible? Well, we asked MI2 to join with CMT to bring the costs and the opportunities forward. And I think Amanda and Paul are going to take over from now and take us through this feasibility.
To introduce Amanda and CM&T, in our years at MI2, we have over a 35-year relationship with Crawford Murphy and Tilley. And they've grown significantly since then, and they're in multiple states. So when we came to Cape and found that they were already engaged with you all and did all the preliminary studies, that was music to our ears. So when we reached out to CM&T, the mic's on.
I know, but you just want to.
I'm sorry. Thank you. So the idea was like home cooking for us, because we have done this many, many times in other cities where we've done a design build process with CM&T. Amanda?
Okay. You got the clicker. Okay, great. Hi, I'm Amanda Withers. I was the project manager for the report that was mentioned earlier. I think we turned in September 2021. So yeah, when these guys came to us, we hadn't originally looked at a new plant. That wasn't something that we investigated at the time. We thought it would be more expensive, but kind of in retrospect is always 2020. So when we looked back, we're like, yeah, we think we should take a second look at this, because if you've been out there to the water treatment plant, it is located on a hill, and a lot of the improvements would have to be incorporated into that steep slope, which made the structures more expensive than they typically would be if you were just on a level surface. You're also working with an older plant. When you're retrofitting something of that age, there's always going to be additional costs. Some of the buildings need to be looked at structurally to see if they're, up to code, things like that. So we took a look. Yeah, go ahead, the next one. Yeah, I know, it's the same thing. Okay, so when we went back, we had done a study. It probably took us a year and a half for a different community. It was a smaller plant. It was 5 million gallons a day. That's what the MGD is. What you're looking at here is more like 11, full build out, 11 million gallons a day. So, but we had these really good costs that we had already done, and we had looked at 3 different types of treatment. We looked at ion exchange, we'd looked at membranes, we'd looked at lime. This is all something we'll get into a bit more if we do a comprehensive study, which one is the best for your community, which one's going to fit on the site that we end up with, things like that. So we haven't chosen one yet, but we had all 3 of those from an old report, and we were able to bring those numbers forward and bump them up. So that's what my first bullet is, just that we had these really good numbers, so we bumped them up by a multiplier, 1.7. We also took the numbers for the existing plant improvements that we had already proposed, and that was out of that September 2021 report. We brought those forward as well to current dollars. And the way we usually do that is we go use a source. It's called Engineering News Record. They keep a construction cost index that's nationwide. They look at the cost in labor, the cost in equipment, the cost of concrete, rebar, everything, and then they bring that forward. So we use that multiplier on all the numbers, the improvements and the existing, and a new plant. So that we brought those all forward to May 2024. So we were looking at apples and apples now, all in the same year of dollars. So that was the first step. And then on top of those costs, we added in engineering at 15% for all the different options. For 3 of them, we had 3% for legal, because some of them will require some land acquisition, such as the new water main replacement projects. Some of those, you're going to need more easements and such. The new water treatment plant, we assume there would be some cost there, and also the deep well. So you'll probably need a new site for your wells. So we put in a percentage for those 3 parts of the project. And then on top of all of that, we added a contingency. What a contingency is for is just because at this stage, we haven't done the detailed design. It's conceptual or considered a preliminary number. So you add another percentage on top of that. And we chose to use 20% at this point in time. And we did that again, the same for the new plant improvements and for improving the existing plant. So that's all my background. And now to the, oh yes, you already did it. Now to the numbers, right? Which everybody wants to know about. So once we did that, and again, we're trying to compare them equally. So we were looking at 11 million gallons a day for either one, right? Whether you improve your plant and get the capacity up to 11, or if you just build a new one that's 11 to start with. So the improvements, we were coming out just over 52 million for that. And then the new water treatment plant, including the deep wells in there as well, was about 62 million. And then the next 2 lines, you're like, why did she put these in here? They're the same number. Well, we wanted to show you what the total was, but it doesn't matter what you do with the plant. Your improvements out in the water main, and these are just the high priority water mains. There was quite a lot more if you read the report. But this was the high priority ones, was about 32.6. And then the booster stations, there was 4 booster stations that needed improvements, and that came to about 8.2. So,
One of the numbers
yep.
that has been shown is 19.9 million in.
You want me to just address that right now?
Why don't we?
Sure,
Because-
yeah. Yeah, I saw the 19.5, I think it was. And at first I was like, not sure where that number came from. It came from our report. That is true. But really all it covers is it covers the 3 projects you're already started on, covers your SCADA improvements, the lime system, and then I'm blanking on the 3rd one. But the 3, huh? Yes, thank you. And then improvements in the pipe gallery. So those 3 projects were included, as well as bringing a couple of the existing structures and processes up to 8.5 million gallons. So that does not get you to 11. There was significant other improvements required to get the existing plant up to 11 million gallon capacity.
The
So-
reason we looked at $11 million is we're looking at the next 50,
gallons.
so 11 million gallons per day is we're looking at the future of the community, the next 50
Yeah.
years.
That's-
And so we tried to get an apples to apples consideration on what it would cost to bring the existing plant up to 11 MGD versus a new plant with new wells.
Correct. Okay. Yep. All right. Back to words. Sorry, I like the numbers better personally, but so these next 2 slides, they're just kind of going through some of the things we thought of as pros and cons. Other people may not agree with us, or they may come up with other ones. But if you kept your existing water treatment plant, you've already got that infrastructure, right? That's obviously a bonus. You've got those tanks, you've got the pipes in place. You can try to reuse those. In my experience, it's difficult sometimes to reuse them. They may not be the right size, or the concrete has deteriorated. I always say if it's older than me, you maybe shouldn't use it again, shouldn't try to reuse it, because there's just other difficulties there. And the site is great though. Plant 1 site is an excellent site. You've got your lime disposal straight to the river. You're still permitted to do that. It's not hurting anything. You can continue with that at that site. So those are the best things about keeping the plant and improving it. And then also we put an existing wells on here. Obviously you're going to keep your wells. You're not going to stop using them as long as they're producing. You're going to try to figure out how to use them. But our second solution would supplement that. The cons would be the capital cost for improving that. Once you've bumped it up to today's dollars and everything, it's almost as much as a new plant. Maintenance costs at an old facility are going to continue to increase, and they just are, because you've got old infrastructure. Unforeseen condition costs, that's what I'm talking about, using it if it's too old. Things are going to happen that you don't even know about now. So and then there can be operational challenges also with having an older plant. So, okay, yep. Oop. Oh, it's like taped together. Okay. For a new water treatment plant, you can build it for what you need, right? You can build it to be expandable. You always want to be flexible with a new plant, but you can make sure everything's sized right. give your operations folks more flexibility. We would plan on keeping it, if at all possible, near or adjacent to Plant 1, because like I said, that is a great site. And then we would just tie into that discharge line and then try to reuse what we could of what's out there now. The new treatment plant, what did we have there? Oh, yes, it's going to cost less to operate and maintain, right? I mean, just straight out of the bat, you're going to have less power, you're going to have less operations costs because it's new, right? There's not as much that you're going to have to be fixing and maintaining all the time. We will plan on, yep, I already said that, I think, but we will plan on using some of your existing infrastructure, such as the wells and the lime system. The deep wells, now, this is where it comes in. We're hoping to find water at a deeper elevation that you can use. Quality will be an issue. We have to find the right spot, and we will work with the state to find that spot. And quantity is also going to be an issue, but we're not going to get rid of the old wells. But we would hope that we can find better water, and that can be your primary source. And then you just use these shallower wells you already have as like a backup. So it just gives you more flexibility.
It costs a little bit more, $10 million.
Yep, $10 million more.
And
Yep.
worth noting, the
Oh, you're right.
increased operations efficiencies at a lower cost. So it's going to operate more efficient, and obviously a new plant is going to cost less to operate.
Yep.
In fact, it could be a couple $1 million a year. We don't know the specifics right now because we need to do what we're calling our phase 1 study, where we would really do a deep dive on all these aspects, including a new test well where we see if we can find that better water source, that better source water.
Yep. Good.
Paul is going to take us through some finance options.
Very good. The traditional approach here that you're looking at is if the city keeps it and it just upgrades the existing facility. The PPP stands for public-private partnership. Both the city has to increase to do its job, increase the water rates. The same on the PPP. We have to have increased water rates. On this traditional side, tax exempt bond financing, which is very attractive, and with rates coming down, it could be even more attractive. On the PPP side, you'd have private equity and commercial funding. And there's an awful lot of money, particularly pension fund money today, coming to infrastructure projects. On the traditional side, there really is no value to depreciation, where on the private side, we can sell the depreciation to raise equity in the project. On the traditional side, the city maintains 100% of the risk. On the PPP side, MPS MI2 takes 100% of the risk, excluding law changes or rate collections. And what we mean by that, for now, the lime sludge is going into the river. If DNR comes in and says, hey, you can't do that anymore, that's a change in the law, in the permit. But as it stands, we take all those risks: operational risk, capital risk, repair and maintenance risk, and utility and chemical risk. That's how we do it. And that's a huge difference between these two approaches. On the left side, the city maintains statutory reserves. And on our side, if it was a public-private partnership, we would build in to build the capital for reserve for both the city and for our side. The other side is, don't forget, on the traditional way, the city still owns the asset. And on the PPP route, the city still owns the asset. Okay, still stays that way. Next slide. The rate structure, how the finances could play out, is what I mean by the rate structure. It's going to take an increase in rates one way or the other. So how fast, and we've worked with Lisa, and we're delighted to continue to do that. How would we build that rate structure to build those reserves, and to be honest, to try to get back to that 1.0, which you all heard about, which is the average in our state. And you're way below that today, but try to get you back up there so there'll be more public financing available.
The community is going to have to rally around this effort, and that's going to be an important part of this, one way or another.
All the costs that we would present would be on a guaranteed maximum basis, with any savings returned to the city. And then we would recruit private investment. And as I mentioned, there's a ton of private equity out there today looking for capital infrastructure, particularly when it's done in a green way, which this water treatment plant would be, a very sustainable way. At the beginning of the offset, we would have full term, the city continues to collect the user fee, but makes just one monthly payment to us. And then we take care of all the expenses from there. That's how it works, just like a landlord and a master net lease. We would be responsible for everything. All the maintenance, the operation, the labor, the chemical, the utilities. You saw in the earlier slide that we're forecasting that to be plus or minus $2 million a year. If you net present value $2 million of savings a year, it's a little bit less than $2 million unloaded. Over 30 years, that's going to be somewhere between $50 and $75 million difference between existing operations and new operations of a new high technology plant. That's significant. The operational difference here is significant. Throughout the entire agreement, no matter which way, the city retains ownership of all the assets and maintains rate control, which is very, very significant here.
Are there additional benefits? Potentially better health for our citizens if we can find better source water. Water quality and capacity are significant drivers of future community viability and economic development. Food industries, you hear about the chip industries and all these industries relying on quality water. Quality water can be a major asset in our economic development. Dan Presson and I were talking about this, and we were talking about Memphis, and Memphis is exploding. And one of the reasons is they have such great water, and they're using that to market their community. And the fixed operating costs mean water service could be more of a reliable income source. The MPC process here is a phased approach. The discovery, where all work to evaluate, research, and estimate a new water treatment plant, the source wells, and the PPP, we've done that preliminary on our nickel. What we've asked for you to consider, our ask tonight, is to consider a phase one study. A phase one study, which is about 1% of the $120 million being contemplated. Our study would be $1.27 million. And this would allow us to dig a test well, to do a sophisticated and state-of-the-art sound a survey of all the existing distribution mains, so that more confident approach and strategy could be used in repairing and replacing those. And also to further play out these financial possibilities, including, and we think that this phase one approach would result in a lot of good material for the city to use in its discernment over the new rate structure and so forth along these lines. All the work we do becomes property of the city. So if we do this phased approach and the city decides to continue on the current path, everything, the test well and all these different assets become your property.
Plus, we select which water treatment plant. There's 3 different types of design of water treatment plant. We'll select the one and analyze it and cost it in detail.
Based on the water we find in the new well.
Correct.
So we find the new source water and then design the new plant around those current needs and best practices. A summary of the phase one costs and deliverables, the test well, capacity and water quality testing, that's the majority of the expense. The water loss survey, that's that sophisticated sound survey, that's part of the program at $100,000, preliminary engineering, facilities and operations evaluation, and then financial modeling and pro forma and development, and the pro forma development to support the potential new rate structure. If the city wanted us to include that, we certainly would like to. And so the total of this phase one effort is $1,272,000. The ask tonight is for the council to approve MI2's phase one proposal. And I might note, the mayor said that an RFP is required if a new plant. In this case, in Missouri, Approval of this does not require, these are professional services, so this can be approved and we can take care of this work right away. This is about 3 months worth of work. This particular effort does not require, by law anyway, an RFP. We think it would be very useful material, and we welcome your questions and comments at this time. A lot to digest. And again, it is a pretty new approach.
I had a few questions. The availability of water. CMT, I read a report, the CMT, who did our initial evaluation, said that the availability of water, like we're speaking to, and I preface this, none of this is negative. I am water treatment plant remedial 101, okay? It just said that there wasn't deeper wells and water available beyond what we have now. What gives you that confidence, Jim and Mr. McKee, that we have that?
Well, our study never looked at the wells because at the time, that was 3 or 4 years ago, there was nothing wrong with your wells. And they had just been put in. I mean, they were, I think it was, don't quote me, I think it was 2011 or so when those wells were brought online. So we had just assumed your water source was fine. That was not part of what we researched.
I mean, wells,
What gives us the confidence
now.
now? that
Yeah.
there is
other
no-
wells.
Right. Well, we've got more work to do. I can't point to a spot and tell you to drill a well today. But there are deep aquifers in this area. And my coworker, Bill Brown, can speak to that, I guess, more specifically. So you want to tell him what you, yeah.
We looked at some well water availability in the area. The city of Jackson has got some high producing wells at about 1,400 feet. And a couple of the public water supply districts at about 1,600 feet have found some good water as well. I spoke with the DNR and they are not sure if that aquifer extends all the way into Cape. And what they would want to do is do a site-specific survey, and they would come in and work with your engineers and try to find out if the feasibility of drilling new wells in the area. So the water quality in the well, the lime softening process, the RO, the ion exchange that are proposed are all good for certain types of water quality problems. If we hit salinity, for instance, in the deeper well, reverse osmosis would be the chosen technology. Other than that, lime softening and iron exchange are the other two options for depending on what the water quality is.
So indications are that there are deep aquifers here. Now, there is risk, but part of what we're saying is that, is it worth $1 million or 1% of what we're going to spend just on, and that's on the capital cost. What would happen is if we do strike the good water, the savings over time of treating that water would be significant. So part of this is, it's a test, and there are no guarantees, but we're suggesting it's worth the investment because the savings over time and to treating the water and so forth would be really significant compared to continuing to take care and treat the water that we have now. And this is based on the report that the city staff said about the state of our source water. Something has changed. We all know that we had great water here, but something has changed. And so this goes to the heart of the matter. If we can find better water, it's worth the investment to try.
Is there a contingency plan? What will we do with the existing water treatment plant? Will it just cease to exist? And obviously to keep it operational would require additional funds. But let's say an earthquake comes through here. What happens if we lose that building? Do we lose additional availability for water beyond the new treatment plant?
Sure.
Let me clarify, if you lose the existing,
If we
Plant?
we build a new one.
okay.
All right.
What happens to the existing plant if we build a new one?
Well, most of it would probably be abandoned just because of the age. You're already investing in the lime softening, new equipment. We would try to reuse that equipment. We might reuse some of the offices, but the majority of it, yeah, we probably would not use.
Could the well serve as a backup though?
Oh, definitely.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. One other one is,
I think we should.
let's see, sewage treatment. Or do you all perform that as well
For the,
for the city, the sewage treatment? Right now, the
mhm,
Alliance, they take care of all of that. We've been
Mhm.
talking about water treatment.
mhm.
I just wanted to affirm that that's part of the proposal as well.
The sewage side of it, no, I don't.
I mean, it
believe
could be,
so. No.
but there's a new facility. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
facility.
You run
I
it.
think you were working in it today, weren't you?
Yeah, we were out there today. No, I mean, Todd Fulton and his guys do a great job at the wastewater treatment facility. I don't think you need MI2 to do anything out
Okay,
there.
I just didn't know if it was in this
It is
proposal.
not, no, sir.
We envision the Alliance staying in place in that relationship and in this one.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to piggyback off of his first question. It seemed like you're focusing on if we can find a deeper water supply. Like is this whole packet contingent upon that if? What happens if we do not? Does
Paul?
it blow this up?
Yeah. No, we'd like to look. I mean, like you said, it's a little bit of a test, so we'd like to find you better water, but you have water and you have a backup. I mean, nobody wants to use river water anymore, but you still have an emergency backup using river water. So it's not like there's not water available. We would just have to design the treatment around whatever water quality you have currently. So
So to answer the question,
it's not.
if we do the test and we can't find water, we can stay with the existing wells and design the new plant built to suit around the water we have.
Yep.
So it doesn't blow this all up. It would eliminate some costs for a new well field.
True.
So,
True.
Be lower cost. But higher operating costs, lower capital costs, but higher operating costs.
part of our premise is lower operating costs. The new plant does some of that just by the fact that it's a new plant, modern technologies and so forth along those lines. If we can find new, better source water, we really hit the bonanza.
In 30 years, do we renegotiate? Is that what happens in 30 years when this contract comes?
It's like a lease expiring. So the assets have been yours all along. The agreement can be renegotiated. There's, MI2 has some future people, younger people and so forth along those lines. I won't be here renegotiating.
You most
Paul
likely
might.
will, Joe.
But yeah, it would pass on, and the city has the option to take it over themselves or put it out for bid or continue on with MI2.
Sounds good.
I had a question. This proposal, what other communities, have you done something similar in other communities through this phase? And if so, what has been the outcome of that?
Good question, Paul.
It would be Amanda and I both. They work in way more communities than we did, but when we were EMC, we were in 80 communities and we were in 12 different industrial markets where we treated their industrial water and wastewater. This design build process has been used in many, many places. To give you a perfect example, the one where we established our relationship was, I think it was 1982 in Mount Vernon, Illinois, where we proposed a concession agreement with the mayor. And we got out through the whole thing and they were ready to move. And he said, oh, we're going to finance it instead of you financing it. Nothing changed other than the city did a bond issue instead of us bringing private money to the table. And EMC is still there today, almost 30 years later, operating it. And it was built on a design build basis with Crawford Murphy Tilly. Then I don't know how many cities you all are working in today. God, they're all over many states.
I think the question was specific to MI2 though.
Right.
Yeah.
MI2 handles one community currently.
That's correct.
And so MI2 does not have many contracts for this sort of thing. We're relying on the experience of Paul and the people in MI2 and CMT and their long experience with these sorts of things. Now, is a phased approach like this standard where we do the testing and before you enter into phase 2 and so forth along those lines? That is kind of a standard in the industry.
Yeah, and to the question about EMC, I sold EMC in 2002. They proceeded to destroy my company and it just made me sick. So I spent 5 years trying to buy it back and another 2 years after a non-compete, they wouldn't sell it to me. That's when we started MI2, and everybody, all the other competitors in the country have pulled all their people. So we have a cadre of people that we'll continue to work with. The majority of this project is on the design build side, knowing what to build and how to build it, with the operator working with the builder and the engineer to have operating efficiencies. To give you some idea, selecting the right kind of pump. Our process doesn't take the low bid on the cheapest pump you can buy that's going to fail or have a bad energy curve on it. Our operating people will work with the engineers to select the right kind of treatment technology, the right kind of pumping technology, and the right kind of operational and utility energy quality. So it's a whole, it's two sides. It's not just the operation. MI2, or MPS rather, we've done billions of dollars worth of design build.
So in terms of construction, design build projects, MPS is involved in those currently, and many of those. So I gave you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
But
Well, you would still have, to answer, I think, what Nate and Tameka were asking, Alliance would still be operating the plant, correct?
that's what we assume.
Okay. And we would have CMT design and build the plant, which is how most construction projects would work. You'd have a design build team and they would work together with the construction team and
And
get MEP.
they've been here on the location, so they're very familiar with the city, the situation, the works. In fact, they costed out the improvements that the city is
Correct.
currently contemplating. CMT did those as well as ours.
The one advantage of a new plant, again, Councilman, is we don't disrupt the existing operation. So when you're renovating an existing operation, you're constantly going in and having to treat clean water and get it out and fix it at the same time. Here, we're building a new one and we don't interrupt service. We build it all in 3 years so that all the operating efficiencies would come in place in year 4. The other thing is the men and women that are running the plant today, we don't want to displace anybody. And we will work with Alliance to do this.
They're here tonight.
Yeah, right. They're all here tonight. And that's the idea, because they
think
know
that's
the
key.
system,
I
they
think-
know the plant.
Yeah, I think that's key for everyone to know.
Right. And that's what we've done in every city we've gone into.
It's hard to come up with an apples to apples comparison because, we're really talking about diverse directions here. Do we invest in a 100-year-old plant, a 93-year-old plant, and retrofit it? And, I know that Alliance and the city staff have done almost miraculous work to keep us viable. But the opportunity here at the onset of these major investments, we're talking about maybe the biggest decisions the council will make in terms of investment, $120 million over 22 years. There's an opportunity here to consider an all-new path, something that can mean something for generations to come. I was at lunch, we were doing some planning, and there was a big poster, a big frame poster of the new bridge opening 100 years ago. The plant opened shortly thereafter, and it's really interesting, but things change. And a lot of this is about the future of our community. And so the ask is this phase 1 study that will provide you with the information to decide, okay, we're going to stay this course and continue to retrofit. And, the operations to, as I think it's Mr. Williams from Alliance said, we got 8-hour windows when they can go in there and work in that plant. And it's a lot of time, it's a lot of labor, it's a lot of cost. We can build a new plant concurrent to that. And the expenses are not terribly more. We've tried to do an apples to apples comparison. And as the result of this phase 1 study, I think the city staff, we could work together with them to really lay out an apples to apples comparison where you look at the capital improvement costs, the probable impact on annual operating costs, which are extensive. And over 25 years, it's a significant amount of money. The timeline, what's the timeline for the improvements? On May 6th, The presentation showed 2024 to 2032, about $56 million worth of improvements. The rest of the improvements would be 2033 and beyond. In our case, because of a public-private partnership, in 3 years, we would have the new plant and the prioritized mains replacement and repairs online. So that's a significant situation. And then the operating expense risk, meaning if something breaks right now, the city pays for the repairs and labor and so forth along those lines. MI2 would take on that risk as part of their agreement. So, and again, these things need to be drilled down. It takes a lot of work. It's 3 months worth of work. Our people on site working closely with the city. We think that the investment in the study and the test well and so forth is good stewardship and a good investment. But my statement tonight is I'm a Cape Girardeau guy. I'm with you no matter where you go. I love this community. I'm deeply invested in this community.
We wouldn't be here if you hadn't asked us to be here.
Well, and they put in a lot of hours worth of work, but
And thank you
my
all for that.
record speaks for itself. And so I'm not going anywhere, but we're doing this for our children and for the future of our community. So God love you. Or any other questions?
I have some questions, and maybe there's some others too. So I'm, just to make sure we're all clear, MI2 in its current state has not constructed new water treatment facilities anywhere, or does not currently have any ownership or management of a water treatment facility?
Not of as MI2. That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And we've not tried to fool anybody about that. Our history, we've had over 80, we had over 800 people that work
Prior
for
to
us.
2002.
Right. And
Okay.
the capability to be able to tap those people, the same engineers we work with, but on the design build side, we never stopped. We still are doing design build in.
Through your
in
construction
the beat,
company.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And bringing the capital to
Mhm.
projects, okay? So
For water treatment facilities or other kinds of construction?
All kinds of facilities, including microgrids for energy. That's one other thing that we would love to look at here.
Mhm.
Today, we're one of the largest microgrid developers where in the city and 3 other projects, we would end up doing a triangular solar panels, solar batteries, gas-driven turbines. We'd run our own energy during the day and buy our energy at night from the power plant. That kind of
Aside
stuff
ben-
we do every day.
a side benefit of having MPS and Paul McKee on the ground here and engaged with the city of Cape is economic development. I mean, we're talking thousands of jobs and Paul has delivered. He did Winghaven on his own. Winghaven and attracted MasterCard's World Processing Headquarters. When you're out on Highway 70, Paul developed all of Winghaven and brought those jobs to Missouri. The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, I was involved in that. We competed with 200 communities to keep that in Missouri and won that bid. And that is a tangible, I think our future jobs as a community, we need to be looking at jobs that are related to the 4th Industrial Revolution and what's next in all these industries. Paul can help take us there and increase those associations. Excuse me, Mayor, you had another question.
I'm going to add one other thing to the mayor's question. Jeff Mummert, who's here with me, has worked for me for how many years, Jeff?
Well,
Since '86, and has run water and wastewater plants. He replaced the whole city infrastructure water system in West Frankfort, Illinois, which was a real handful, I might add. And he's been all over the country for us, from California to Minnesota to Texas. He then took on all the industrial operations. So Jeff is the operational expert that'll be working with CMT. He never left us.
Gotcha.
by the way, if MPS is engaged for the design build of this project, and we bring the capital and build a new plant and fix the infrastructure and so forth along those lines, if after a time it's decided that you no longer want MI2 to be the operating partner, I mean, this isn't a lifelong commitment. There are ways to unwind these arrangements. So Just like there are ways, if the city decides to finance, the city's got an outstanding finance department. If they decide to finance it, MPS and MI2 can oversee the management and the design build
It helped.
and help. We're here to serve the city.
I'm struck, I'm still actually stuck on going over the previous CMT evaluation from 2 years ago. It was a pretty well laid out plan to retrofit and replace and upgrade components of our current water treatment facility. I thought it was an excellent report,
Thank you.
lengthy.
It was a
and
bit
not easy
lengthy.
reading, but
No.
a fairly, it seemed to me a very good evaluation and very detailed. And as far as I understand, we that's what we're embarking on right now. I think the plan is we've committed $9 million this year. Is that correct? On some upgrades of those components. So that, and that has to be done immediately.
Those were the 3 highest priority
Yes.
projects. Yes.
And so, as far as timing goes, we would be investing $9 million in something that if we were to see a new plant here in a couple of years, that would essentially then become obsolete. Is that?
Well, I don't know the details of all the cost breakdown, but we would, like I said, we try to reuse the line. The line system, what you're doing is you're using old tanks and you're retrofitting it with new equipment. We could still use that new equipment. So I don't think you would lose anything there. The piping, you need it. You have a bottleneck. Your filters can't treat the water because it can't get there.
Right.
So, I mean, I think you need that now.
Yes.
So that costs, because we would probably not use those filters, so that
Sure.
cost would be lost if you want to think of it that way.
Mhm.
And then the SCADA system, I mean, I'm not an electrical engineer, but what I know about SCADA systems is most of it's in the programming, and you're not going to lose that. And I'm pretty sure you could take your computers with you. So I don't think you'd lose much on that either.
Is there a way to determine specifically what could transfer?
Yeah, if I had more information.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
At the end of our study, we'll know that.
Yeah, I think that's something we would definitely look at.
You mentioned the possibility of a new plant adjacent to our current one.
Yes.
What is the land identified to do that?
Well, we're gonna have to work with the city on that too, because what I understand is you do own quite a bit of land around the existing plant. Some of it is maybe not zoned correctly where we could build on it, but I think there is land to the north and also to the west that would be possible.
It depends on where we find water.
Well, yeah, I guess there is possibility if we find water somewhere else that there'd be a better suited site, but since you already have your permits and things at Plant 1, that's in our minds the best.
And our
place to
number
put it.
included additional land if necessary.
Yeah, we did have
In
that.
our,
You would buy the land?
yes. Ideally, we want to be close to the river because of the line
Yeah.
sludge going into the river, which is a
If
heck of an advantage here. In
Yes.
most places, we have to treat that.
Did I understand something about wells in Jackson, in the city of Jackson? What did
No,
I?
they have wells.
They have wells, but
Mhm.
They have deep water wells.
Yeah, they have existing deep water wells.
right, yes. So you don't have any thoughts yet on where new wells might be, okay. Might or
We
might
know
not.
where we want to find it, which is right next to the existing plant and well field.
Sure.
That's the most efficient and the lowest cost.
Well, right. I mean, quite frankly, if you're talking about some additional, distance, you're talking about a lot more distribution, right? That needs to.
No, we
happen.
would, match the well field to the distribution. You don't want to get a well field that's way removed from your distribution system.
Well, I agree.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
would
no.
not do that, right.
Yeah, and I mean, if we work with DNR and we cannot find a site that we think is suitable, we're not going to spend $1 million
Right.
drilling a well just for fun. We absolutely would not do that. So we would have to work with them on the geology and find a spot that everybody agrees is viable, including the well drillers. There's several in this area that do work here. But if we don't find that spot, then we wouldn't do it.
Well, but isn't the payment, the upfront payment, the ask? It doesn't, I thought that was pretty clear, that you need 1.2 something million
Yes,
dollars
but-
from the city.
but the $900,000 item, which is drilling the new test well,
Mhm.
if we can't find the right place to do it, we wouldn't suggest that you do the test. We'd save that amount of money.
That would come back,
Just wouldn't
Mhm.
spend it.
Yeah.
It would come back to the city. That's correct.
So, no, I don't know, maybe I'm there or not there. You'll need the city support, financial support to do your phase one, or that'd be a cost that you would cover as a courtesy to the city?
No, we would request payment from the city.
We did the first one for free.
Well-
The next
Well,
one.
I thought y'all said y'all was private.
Pardon me?
I thought you said you was a private. Private is a little bit more lucrative than public.
But that decision hasn't been made, all
Okay,
right? At
Yeah, I
the
just-
conclusion of the study, if the city lets us go private, then all that cost would come back into our cost. All right?
We would
If the
give-
city decides to keep it and finance it, it would be
Oh.
part of the city's cost. That's a good question.
yeah, since you're
Very good
investors.
question.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
investors, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
I still have a question regarding, my understanding from city staff is that we would have to request proposals, that we can't simply act on this one thing.
In the case of, we've been challenged on that in quite a few different cities. It's a statutory law in the state of Missouri that this is considered professional services, just like the engineering, just like legal, and it can be sole source. It does not have to be RFP. That's correct.
I think though it's probably a separate discussion as to whether we as a city, however, would choose to engage in an RFP process.
Right.
Yes. So that's a separate conversation, for sure.
I was just gonna say, it seems, I don't know, from a budgeting standpoint, it seems more conceptual than it is, I don't know, maybe it's from your years of experience, but for me, I hear a lot of speculative scenarios that would play into the the margin of your budgeting error, because I hear whether we get a deeper water source or not will determine what type of treatment facility we may even build, where they lie on the spectrum, I would imagine, between the three different variations, along with all of the equipment and all of the machinery that go into that, where that location would be, and whether there has to be land acquisition even to do that, which isn't a cheap expense either. And then redistribution of our main feed into our distribution lines. There's an added, I mean, that's no small penny or no small pill to swallow. And so I was wondering how that gets, if this is best case scenario, or if this is not, if this is very conservative and it's on that end. And if that's the case, do we realize that savings, or is that, I
Good
mean,
question. Yes, you realize the savings, because we'll get to a guaranteed maximum sum for the whole thing once we decide a direction after our study. Yes, you will realize all the savings. And then there'll also be, if we were to privatize and bring private funding to the table, the city will get the majority of the benefit of the net margin as we continue to operate more efficiently over time. So you get both of those. The second thing is, these people have designed, and we have operated all three kinds of plants. Okay, so this is not new to us either way. We costed all three with CM&T. We did a 20-year analysis on all three to say what would be the best long-term life of all three, and we made a selection, and we based this on that selection, which we think is conservative. It's got a 20% contingency in it. Okay, but no matter what, we're pretty damn confident the operating costs of the new plant. That's something we really are confident. We know we can save in the neighborhood of $2 million annually when the new plant comes online. The net present value of that difference between today's operating cost and that operating cost is somewhere between 50 and 75 million. over 30 years at a 5.5% discount rate brought forward to today's dollars, which would get added to this capital. So operational savings are a significant issue here, very significant issue.
But you're not currently operating anywhere that would,
No, I've answered that. No, we're not.
Mayor, what's that
operating
matter?
water. We have
Sorry?
operated.
What's that matter if they're operating anywhere existingly now?
I'm trying to verify, well, I'm trying to verify where these numbers or this expertise is coming from.
The
numbers
city's
came
engineer.
from CM&T. From the numbers came from CM&T that we participated in. Jeff has been with me, like you just heard, forever, and has run plants all over. On the design build side of the construction, we've put together billions of dollars worth of design build. All right, so this is not a new process to us, Mayor. This is not something that we woke up on Tuesday and decided we were going to get into this business. That's not. And also, I'm a licensed structural engineer and environmental engineer, personally.
So I'll just back up and get over that. The, regardless of any way that we proceed, whether we go the current trajectory, go one of these options you've given us, it is dependent upon the city acquiring financing from the public beyond the 5% increase that we are constricted to
Yes, sir.
as a municipality. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
okay.
And the other part I'd like to say about your earlier comment, isn't it worth 1% of the total fixed cost to look at another alternative? That would be my ask of it. Isn't it worth looking?
And
I
that's, but that 1% is just to determine whether it's we can get a deeper well, correct?
And prioritize your water main replacement projects
But we
and figure out what's the best plant if you want to go with a new plant.
we could work off of the existing wells.
Yeah.
All right, and save that well field cost,
We
just
could.
cost more.
Yep.
But we wouldn't have to pay for the new well field either. So, we're hoping that's not the case, but that's a possibility as well.
I think that Mr. Thomas has brought up some points. The test, that first phase answers a lot of questions. But there are a lot of, if this works, then this, and if it doesn't, then that, and so forth. And I wish it was different, but without doing a lot of work, we can't get to firm answers on these questions. And it's a judgment. Is it worth the effort to invest to see if this is a viable option or not? And
What do you say, ma'am?
I wish we'd have looked at it in the first place. I wish we'd have pushed harder to look at a new plant as an option at the
Why
time.
wasn't it an option? Why didn't they look at it?
We assumed at the beginning of the study that it would cost more. But like I said, once we really started digging into the costs and what it would take to upgrade and add facilities at that current location, it costed out a lot more than what we thought it was going to. But, by then we were almost done, so.
I think one area of concern is, as we've been discussing recently with the public, we were able to raise our water rates 5% this year. The city has the ability to do that. That's never fun in and of itself. And, we're starting to discuss the fact that we're going to need to raise our rates further. But there is a difference between the city going to the public and asking the public to vote to raise their own rates versus a private company perhaps just instituting higher rates at one point,
no, that's not a possibility.
No.
Either path is going to have to, any rate increase, significant one-time rate increase is going to require a vote of the people. We don't raise the rates.
City keeps control of the rate structure and the asset.
All we would do is bring in private money to finance it rather than a bond. But that has nothing to do with the rates.
So private ownership is not an option that you all are even entertaining?
No, the city, I don't think would want to, Are you talking about us buy the asset?
I know where she's going, yeah. There's a firm, a national firm that'll come in and buy your water plant. You know, look up Alton, Illinois as a good comp here recently. When you do that, the rate is then decided by the Public Service Commission in Jeff City and not locally. And you lose control, but you're selling your asset in that particular case. And the latest one was Alton, Illinois and Granite City, Illinois. The rates jumped just ridiculous amounts in both cities.
We don't think that's a good
That's
path.
not appropriate.
But
You're just talking about management. You're proposing construction of a new plant and management of that new
Yes,
plant.
but we're also talking about the option for us to bring private investment to pay for the capital expenditures
If
rather
you
than
wish.
bond finance.
If you wish.
But back to the 1.2 million, to look about whether there's deeper wells, wouldn't it make more sense? We have to go to the voters. Why spend $1.2 million? And if the voters turn it down, then it seems like you've just wasted $1.2 million.
Well, unfortunately, the voters are going to have to approve either direction. The contemplated improvements to the existing plant or a new plant. The city has to rally around something. And the council has to decide what's the best option to take to the voters.
so
Yeah.
I guess you can continue if you're going.
But, I'm sorry, go on.
No.
But
change the subject.
either way, the community's gonna have to rally around something. I'm all for it. But what they are asked to support is the decision that you have to make. $1.2 million is to decide if this is a truly feasible approach. And if we can find new source water, again, the Department of Natural Resources will be very involved. They do a site visit before anything is drilled. And that's probably not clear on the proposal.
But in our professional opinion, there's no question it's worth doing, or we wouldn't have brought it forth. Okay, both CM&T and us.
So I think building off the mayor's question from earlier, to dumb it down, the private investment, we would not have to bond it. You guys would fund it. We would be on the hook to pay you back on some sort of payment schedule over 30 years
Got it. Yes,
with
sir.
a set interest rate that
That's
you guys establish. Is it variable? How is that established? And
That's negotiated.
that's where the rate increase comes into play is if our rates are inadequate to pay the payment amount that we're on the hook for to the private investors,
You're on it.
contractually obligated to. And so if that is, then we would have to dip into some other funding mechanism beyond what we get from our enterprise fund of the existing rates, correct? I mean,
That's true no matter what, right? I mean, whether you do a bond or the private investment, but before
Or whether you do a new plant or rebuild the old plant, you still have to do it.
But before that's done, all the costs would be vetted out and the pro forma would be played out. And then the rate proposal for the community would be brought forward. That's up to the city. So the advantage though, Mr. Thomas, is with MI2 is those costs would be fixed for the 30-year period. And they include operating costs. So it's kind of a known factor.
include operating cost. And what do you mean? It's not the labor
It's everything.
operating
it's
costs,
everything.
it's everything else. So that would still be dependent upon a separate contract
No,
through Alliance or
no.
our own staffing.
No. it
Or
would
that
be one
contract would be
contract.
between you and Alliance.
Yes.
Okay.
We would assume that contract. We assume it.
Okay.
And, but part of it,
You
part
would
of the
assume it.
assumption is a new plant is going to require less labor, less chemical costs and so forth. So once the new plant is, less power costs and things along those lines, once the new plant is online, the amount to run it and operate it is going to drop. Which is good news. It's part of the benefit of a new plant.
So to benefit everyone, MI2 will come in and they will hire contractors to build out. They will select material. They will hire contractors. They come in, they put the plant together. You construction manage that. And that's what we're talking about in my two, and then Alliance would stay in place and manage their day-to-day operations.
That's correct.
Okay.
So at the overarching, we're gonna be tenants and you all gonna be the landlords to something you're gonna assist us in finances, assuming we don't have to worry about too many risks with the proposal you're putting together. I'm just kind of simplifying it.
You're the landlord, we're the
We're the
tenant. In the,
In the
In
grand
the-
scheme of it,
in the private capital.
yeah, at the end. Who has most ownership or control at the end?
You have 100% ownership.
The
of it.
city never loses control of ownership or control of the rate.
Okay,
After the lease term, that you're, it's 100%, we walk away.
Or renew.
Hopefully not, but we renew. But
These public-private partnerships are starting to happen in the city of St. Louis. All the parking meters are sold and the private firm or private capital is brought in. The city receives a lump sum, and then that private group runs and they get the rights to the rates, the meter charges for a set period of time. These sorts of things are how communities can choose to fund capital expenditures. It's a modern use of capitalism.
So the rate increase that we will have to, got to get passed through vote, you all will, per this analysis and agreement, that will determine the amount that we have to increase it, because that is what we use to pay you all. You talked about interest through private funding. We have to pay that interest as well?
we'll show you both. One way or the other, there's an interest carry. Being private companies, we can't borrow at the same rate you can. So your interest rate's probably going to be lower, but you can't use depreciation, which we could sell and raise equity. So those two things come in play. So we'll do it either way.
One of the
Whatever's
things we
best
didn't-
For the city.
One of the things we didn't talk about was when we bring that AI up, do you all go out and get funding to help us pay for this? Or is that something that we do when our index gets to where that we have access to state or federal funding because we're back up to speed on what we're contributing?
That's a great question. There's the multi-headed answer to that. Number one, your rate increase is different depending on how fast you want to get to that 1.0.
Okay.
Whether you want to get there in 10 years, I don't think you want to do, 15 years, something like that. Yes, we will participate. Then what could end up happening if we had it privately financed, they could retire our debt and take on public grant money. But it's how fast you get there has everything to do with what the rate increase would be.
Is that something that you all seek, or is that something we seek as a city?
We do it together.
We do it together?
Absolutely
Okay.
do it together. And what we
So there
will
could
do
be
is-
cost savings there as well.
Yes. And the other thing we'll do is obviously you setting the rate it's yours to do, but we'll participate both in looking at the different facets of
collaboration.
design, capital costs, operating costs, cost of money. We'll look at all of it and come up with options. Life of the project, the 20-year analysis pushed us in one direction of what type of plant to build. And I think that's very significant, looking at its 20-year value.
In the end, though, it's the city's decision on what that increase looks like.
Absolutely.
We bring forward all the analysis and what this is going to cost, just like.
No, but we have to raise enough to pay.
and-
So that
and either
really,
way.
that's how we determine that, but we do have some speculation here on what that's gonna be until we hit the deck, or until we
Either
start
way.
drilling, right?
Either way, you have that, whether it's to keep the plant.
Well,
the
right
way
now,
it-
we have the wells. Now it's just a matter of fixing what we have. And one of the toughest things to swallow, the mayor alluded to, is we've already voted and we're spending $9 million. I see that some of these things we will salvage, but a lot of it we won't because of the necessity in the near future.
Got to have it now. And I think that would be very interesting to find out exactly what can be transferred and what can't. I mean, it's
So
subjective.
that's what Amanda talked about, in the whole lime system will still be used. That,
Yeah.
so that will still be used.
And
That's
so
not
will the
wasted
gallery
money.
piping,
Not the piping.
the piping cannot?
I don't think so.
Because,
But the electronics can.
Okay.
You talked about the analogy of us continuing to be the owner and MI2 the tenant. But we do already have a tenant, and that is Alliance. We have another,
No, you're mixing two things. You have an operating contract. What we're talking about is a capital agreement. With a concession agreement, hits the capital, we're bringing 100% of the capital to the table and operating it and taking all the risk. What you have today is just an operating contract for labor.
right,
That's just a part of it. In the landlord-tenant arrangement, we bring everything to the table. If the city decides to to publicly finance it themselves, it's no different whether it's on this side or that side. It's just depending on what value is the best value.
but you're talking about MI2 bringing that operating component in,
Yes.
correct? Okay, so my question
We would
is-
take the operating risk, that's correct.
Okay,
Either way.
my question though is that we have another 8 years of a contract with Alliance for the operating.
As Jim
And
mentioned
so-
earlier, we would like to assume that contract and work with Alliance and keep the labor in place is how we would do that. But the cost has to go down once the new plant comes
Does
on.
Alliance want to, want to do that? And does the city,
Well,
does the city want to do that?
We would have to
I-
parcel out, and then Alliance would be under two different contracts, because we contract with them for our wastewater as well. And
That's
so
correct.
you would just assume the water supply. Yeah, water
That's correct.
treatment.
Well, and that, I have a question about that. Are you still proposing that we would need to take money from our sewer fund or sewer revenues to pay for?
No, no.
Okay.
Today, in the audit that we reviewed, there was money, or the labor from the water plant was assisting on the wastewater side. We couldn't find out the exact allocation of how much that was. We think it's somewhere around $250,000 a year. That's what we meant by that in our proposal. But we're not taking, go ahead.
Since I put some of those numbers together, I'll try to answer. We know that Alliance contract included some sewer work. We made an assumption that that was probably paid for out of sewer funds, that portion of their contract. We don't know that for sure. That's one of the details that the next phase we'll get into with Lisa. As far as how that works, we could continue in our agreement performing that work through Alliance as part of our contract, or we can isolate that and separate it out into two separate agreements. I don't think we're married to either solution, but the bottom line is we've got to get further into those numbers and understand exactly where the different funding are coming from. And I looked at some electric bills that had, I think, 5 or 6 different checks written to pay one electric bill because they were coming from so many different funds. I can understand all the different money that's involved. I can't tell you exactly which fund it's coming from or why it's coming from there. That's going to involve some work with Lisa to further understand that.
The bottom line is our phase one work would identify all costs. From that, a rate structure would be derived with the city. And that rate, the city will write one check to us. We will pay for operating. We will pay the return to investors. All costs are included in that. After a certain time, as the debt is retired, there's going to be a reserve built up that goes back to the city. So all of these costs will be identified, and they are used to identify what we go to the citizens with in terms of a rate increase. That's got to be done one way or another. And so this is an opportunity to go to take a different course in terms of a new plant rather than retrofitting the existing one. It's a big change. And it will represent reduced operating costs. You know, there's going to be less labor.
What are our operating costs? You guys, did you get that information? Each year?
We're not in a position to speak completely to that, and it's understandable.
Sound like you know it.
We've gone through a lot of numbers, but everything was not completely clear to me in the audits. So I really want to spend some time with Lisa understanding whether I've captured everything or not at this point.
And that's fair.
And plus the other thing, remember, we have not yet been in the facilities. We've not met with Alliance. We've tried to stay out of their lane right now. Mostly to see, is the council even interested in us coming into doing that? So, there's still a lot of work to be done in understanding what I think their services and costs are. But we don't have that detail to do that just yet.
So the first phase you're talking about, the testing well, would take 3 to 6 months, correct?
Correct.
Okay. To get a tax issue on the ballot for November, we have to take action in August. So in essence, we would be flying blind trying to determine what kind of rate we would need.
And that time is set totally by the well driller's schedule. We hope to improve on that time frame, but it's set by getting a well driller in here. Obviously, we've been asking to be released to try and set that up as soon as possible.
But it's also important to know that regardless of what project you end up endorsing and following through on, you're going to be flying somewhat blind when you put that before the public in August, because you don't know for sure where your costs are going to be today. And when you're trying to project ahead to, I think, 2030, something we saw in some of the numbers, some of the money you're going to spend there, you've got to try to anticipate what that value of money is going to be at that point in time. That 10 million you think you're going to spend in 2030 could easily be 15. So
Probably should bring this to a head, and this is a study session. Are there any other questions?
I do have one more question. So just from the operational, you say you assume all the operational expense. That's for the water treatment facility, the booster stations, and the network of distribution lines?
That's correct. Yes.
And so the existing lines, which once again goes back to the speculation, you haven't done an analysis of our existing lines and where they may or may not fail, correct?
That's why we put the $32 million. The estimate from CMT is the prioritized main replacements either way is about $32 million. So that's the number we went with. The sound design or the sound water leak detection study would help no matter what.
What about lead line remediation and the federal mandate, unfunded mandate that we have to replace lead line?
We do those over time.
But we have no idea of but you guys would assume the costs and
There's
the
state and
liability of that.
federal money available paying for that right now. So
If you meet the affordability index, well, a very small amount, but there's more if you meet the affordability index, which we don't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're beating our head against that. So who's assuming that cost? I mean, as the owner operators, assuming all operational risk for the existing lines.
Part of our job is to find whatever free money we could ever find. We work with, whether it's DNR or IEPA or whatever state we work in. They know what we're looking for. And we have their respect.
I have one last question. Just, Jim, you mentioned reserves. We're able to make some important urgent purchases because the city has created reserves and for just this moment. With a private company, how does the city, how would we maintain some kind of control or assurance that there would be adequate reserves created by MI2 for down the road?
Well, that's part of what we would work with the finance department, is to say, what are those needs? And what are the costs? And what's it going to cost to retire the debt and to operate it? And so what kind of reserves do we need to create? That all has to be played out either with us or with city staff before you go for the rate increase.
You can imagine, Mayor, if you increase the rates fast, your reserves would build up faster. If you build slow, they're going to build slow. So somewhere in between there is the right answer. And we would work with staff to decide on the right capital, right operation, right rate study.
And I think that that's going to be an important part of the consideration, no matter what, whether you use us or stay with the current course.
Yes.
That's good stewardship. It's a strange thing we find ourselves in, is because our water has been so low cost. All of a sudden now that's a problem. And that just has to be addressed to get to that one-to-one situation. That's something that you've inherited. Like all of this stuff, it's something that the current council and city leadership have inherited. And these are real challenges.
If we approved phase one, then we would send it out for a proposal. You guys understand that?
You have our proposal.
Okay.
This is,
I mean, for the new plan, if we chose to go that route, it would go into an RFP. I believe that's what the mayor said.
Right.
you've got our proposal. This is what we feel needs to be done. We know that this needs to be done in order for us to confidently craft a pro forma and to play out this march towards a new plant and the attendant benefits with it. So we can expedite the RFP process from our standpoint.
Well, an RFP for a new water treatment plant would be.
Well, that's a
giant-
different thing. But phase one
Phase
is,
one.
we have to do that in order for us to answer an RFP.
I
I think
thought
you
you
have
said
to do that in order to create an RFP. Right? You have to answer these questions.
I think there's confusion about the second phase, which would be the design build bid phase, where we would go to market on all of the construction. Okay. That's a given here. All right. That's the second phase, once we know what we're going to do and what's the right way to proceed.
Right.
We'll bid out the well drilling, bid out everything.
Mr. Pulley, could I ask you to chime in? Just forgive me, I've heard a little bit in passing over the past few months about the well drilling in particular. If you may, would you please speak to, because it's been a big topic, and this concept of what our situation is here and drilling new wells and the
Thank you, Mayor. First,
Okay.
can I make a comment? The city's water is safe. It is, right now. The city and Alliance is doing a very good job making our water clean and safe to drink. They have been for 30 years. That's the first thing I want the citizens to know. We are not producing bad water. Okay, we are not. About the wells. So MI2, and I want to thank MI2 to giving a proposal to the city in May. It was very nice. They treated the staff very well. They did. So we met with MI2 back in May. So city staff started vetting the proposal presentations they gave us that day. So one thing they noted was new wells. So we have two well drilling companies that drill in this area. We have one company that actually drops the motors in, that brings the water up. Then you have another company that actually drill the wells for us, Scott City, and other cities in this area. These wells were drilled started in 2011 and came online in 2012. During that time, we had wells at our water plant, at water plant number 1 at Cape Rock. We actually had wells there that had to be decommissioned due to the water quality and quantity. So the city of Cape has to worry about the quantity of water plus the quality. So they did test wells back in 2012. In different places in the city, we decommissioned those wells. They found the test wells back then to be at our location now to get the quantity of water we needed. People talked about drilling in Jackson. They don't have the quantity. So the well drillers that we actually contacted are the well drillers that drilled our wells, plus the second company is the one that actually installed all the equipment. Both of them said, we cannot drill deeper in our current location. We'll hit saltwater. That came, I contacted each of these at different times. We cannot go deeper in our location. They said, we cannot go deeper in the location out at plant 1. We'll also hit something. I then asked them, can we drill deeper in other locations in the city of Cape? Both companies told me, no, they could not. They said they could look at the Jackson wells, which would not be beneficial to the city of Cape under the cost estimate to build out in the city of Jackson and bring it in here to the city of Cape. Both well companies were both in agreements with their engineers and with their people, with DNR, stated we could not go deeper. The quantity of water that city of Cape needs is above 11 million. Both well companies told me that's where we are at now. That's where they found it back in 2012, and that's where it's at now. Now, I will make a comment about the source water. Everybody knows that they've talked about the source water here in Cape. I believe it's getting better. Everybody knows we had a drought 2 or 3 years ago. What happens when the rivers go down? What happens when your water tables go down? The water's not as good as it is now. All our waters are up now. Source water's back up. It's starting getting better. So everybody's talking about the water 2 years ago. Now our treatment centers that are engineering companies, we've used 3 different engineering companies, including CMT. They were given a task order back at the time. Tell us what the city of Cape needs. They told us what we needed. They said the city of Cape, before I was here and other ones, rehab your systems. Bring these up, you can get this what you need. That's what the city of Cape has been going on since before 2 or 3 years ago. They've been rehabbing their systems on CMT's recommendation, as well as Horn Schiffer and Donahue. Donahue did a study telling us how we needed to treat the water. They told us the best way to treat this water at the worst time. They're saying it's getting better. That's what the city's been moving toward, is actually treating the water at the recommendations of all 3 engineering companies. The city has allocated $9 million for new things to go inside the plant. Our plant is strong. If anybody's ever been out there, it's very clean, very strong. It was built well. We need new insides. We do. We need new technology on the inside. That's what they're working on right now with the studies. Our studies show that we need new equipment on the inside of our plant to provide the quantity and quality of water for the citizens. Did that answer your question, ma'am?
It did. Does anybody have any other questions about any of this? I'm sorry.
Mr. Pulley,
Yes, sir.
will it, how about the operating expense of that? Will that go down too with this new
Well,
stuff?
Just as anytime you get new equipment. So our structures out there are very sound. That building was built many, many years ago. They knew how to build things. That building's sound. We need new insides. That's what we're working on right now. We need another clarifier. That's what we're working on. We need new pipes. We need new filters.
Versus a new plant,
I'm sorry?
versus a new plant for 10 million more.
The numbers that we have through our engineers that they have provided me in the last couple weeks. The amount that we can spend to provide the quantity and quality of water to the citizens of Cape Girardeau, we can do the water plant improvements, booster pumps, high priority main improvements for approximately 56 million. MI2 is 108. I shared these numbers with MI2 earlier where we could do this, and they came up with the new numbers stating that the city of Cape would have to spend 92. The engineers that I work with through the city, and we have some of the best around, they're telling me that we're going to spend 56 compared to 108.
Any other questions?
Thank you all.
All right, thank you all.
Regardless of what happens up here, this is a quandary of a situation. And Mr. Riley and Mr. McKee and your staff, thank you for your considerable amount of time that you've taken on your own dime. I know you're all very busy, for bringing us this proposal and giving us some options. And Mr. Riley, whatever we decide, we will need you and to gain favor from our citizens. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate the time, absolutely. Thank you. All right, well, that concludes our study session. We do have some presentations to make, and I will do that down here. All right, we have some honoring to do tonight. Some retirements of some dedicated public servants. First is Klaus Mueller here. Step on up, sir. All right. Well, he is making his way up. Join me here. Tonight, we recognize Klaus Mueller for his 27 years of service to the city of Cape. Klaus began working for the city as a system analyst on June 30th, 1997. During his early years with the city, Klaus managed the information system department and later participated in the reorganization of the IT department. You've seen some stuff, haven't you? Yeah. He was instrumental in the success of the department's reorganization efforts. Klaus settled into the role of senior network engineer in August of 2012, and then in that capacity has contributed to major projects and implementations in the city. He was a key member of the team that implemented the replacement of GEMS. Do you know what that is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Providing a smooth transition to our Munis ERP system, and he fully managed the GEMS ERP system by performing weekly maintenance and troubleshooting any issues that impacted our time or performance. And I'm going to have you tell us exactly what GEMS is in a second, so be ready. Klaus has been the primary role for researching and making recommendations for the purchases of new hardware and software. After the ransomware attack that the city had in January of 2020, Klaus researched and found the cybersecurity application we use today that protects our network from any future cyber attacks. Another key role Klaus performs is maintaining and monitoring the backups of all the servers, which is a never-ending task. Over the years, we have suffered a few viruses destroying a lot of data, but it was able to be restored from the backups. Other duties are coordinating with our primary contractor for network support, purchasing desktop computers and printers while finding the best prices. He also coordinates the replacement of failed systems still under warranty, processing maintenance and warranty renewals, getting quotes, finding the best price for pretty much everything that IT orders, and the list goes on and on. This sounds like all the things that I and many people hate to do, so thank you very much. We will miss Klaus's friendship, his contribution to the IT department, and the huge contribution to the city, and we wish him a happy and healthy retirement. Congratulations. All right. I always ask for you to say a few words.
Thank you. The question was what GEMS was. I think I remember it was like government. Don't remember what E was, but management system. And I'm so glad we replaced it. Actually, and one thing I might have to say, I found the solution for our ransom attack before we had it, but we didn't have the money for it. So please save some money with this stuff, so we might do some improvements there.
Great, thank you. Well, we have a parting gift for you, which in no way signifies all that we appreciate, but it's a little thank you. Is there let's scoot out here for a second. We gotta take the picture, and yeah, here we go. Oh, he's got more. He's not gone yet.
No, only one thing. I hope I leave the city in a better state than when I came in. So
I think you have.
and I wish the city, at least the employees here, the best.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, next we have Patrolman Jay Freeman. Come on up, sir. Mr. Freeman, hello. All right, Patrolman Jay Freeman began employment with us in September of 2000, so 24 years. Yeah. He was appointed to the Special Response Team in August of 2004, served for 2 years there. In December in 2004, he was appointed as an evidence technician. Jay was appointed to the bomb tech department in June of 2007. He was assigned as the Southeastern Missouri Bomb Squad commander in March 2017 and served on the bomb team until retirement. In September of 2008, he was transferred to the traffic division, and in September of 2017, he became a traffic accident reconstructionist. Jay obtained 2 associate's degree from Grantham University, 1 associate in arts degree in business administration and 1 associate in science degree in computer engineering while working full-time at the police department. Did that in 2014? Yeah.
Outstanding one,
I guess.
because I was fully absent.
Sounds like it. He is credentialed as a special deputy U.S. Marshal with the FBI to serve on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and he has participated in the National Security Task Force. Something noted that stood out in your personnel file was this. There's just one. There's just one. I'm sure there's a lot that we could have brought in here, but this was a thank you note from a citizen that sums up Jay's professionalism and his dedication to serve the citizens of Cape Girardeau. This is a quote. Officer Freeman stopped my wife for speeding a few days ago. She was, is what they said. She was guilty, apparently. But she was impressed with his professionalism and sincerity for her safety. I don't suppose we get too many of those comments. So this stood out.
You can say there are few.
Well, and this comment goes on. He is a credit to the Cape Girardeau Police Department. Keep up the great service. And that obviously sums up a lot. You've done a whole lot. The list is long and varied, but we just appreciate your service so much. Can't even say how much. Would you please say a few words?
I appreciate it. Thanks.
There you go. And a few words. All right. And thank you very much. Here, take the nice lid. Enjoy your retirement. What are your plans for retirement? There you go. Moving to part-time. Just easing back just a notch. All right, lastly, we celebrate another retirement highlight, a lot of important service as well. Chief Blair. Chief Wes Blair has served as the Chief of Police for the Cape Girardeau Police Department since July of 2013. Chief Blair has a diverse 28-year background in law enforcement. Prior to joining the Cape Girardeau Police Department, he served as a police officer, interim chief, and assistant chief in Lancaster, Texas. He holds a Master Peace Officer Proficiency certification, from the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement Officer Standards and Education. He's a 2012 graduate of the FBI National Academy. He holds a PhD in Criminal Justice Leadership at Liberty University, a Master's of Public Administration degree from the University of Texas at Arlington, and a bachelor's degree in Organizational Leadership from Mountain State University. Much of his time as a police chief here in Cape has been defined by several unique challenges that his predecessors never had to encounter, such as policing during a pandemic, navigating a shrinking employment pool, and addressing backlash from national police events and issues. Chief Blair has also been instrumental in the build of a new police headquarters, introducing technology to advance crime investigations such as ShotSpotter and Flock, and working collectively with partner agencies to advance a robust employee wellness program within the department. Realizing the behavioral health needs of our community as well, Chief Blair was pivotal in the initiation of a co-responder unit, the first of its kind in our region. In addition to his duties as police chief, he serves on the Investigative Operations Committee and the Midsize Agencies Committee for the International Association of Chiefs of Police, president for the CMO Safe House Board of Directors, a member of the Missouri Child Abuse and Neglect Review Board, and an adjunct instructor at Southeast Missouri State University in the Criminal Justice and Sociology Department. Chief Blair's last day will be with us will be on July 24th. We extend our deepest gratitude for his dedication and 11 years of service to not only his fellow officers, but the city as a whole. Chief Blair has dedicated a huge part of his life to public service and has served with integrity and honor, and we wish him all the best in his new position with the Memphis International Airport. Thank you, Chief.
So thank you very much. This is probably one of the last times I will address y'all, and I will not go on as long as Jim Riley did earlier, I promise. But all those things that the mayor just listed off about my resume and the things that we've done here in Cape Girardeau, I didn't do any of those things. It's your outstanding police department that did those things. I just got out of their way and helped them get the resources to get it done. And I just stood back and let them get the work done. I'm very grateful to this community and the support that I have gotten over my 11 years here now, and that my family has gotten during that time. You know, my son, who's here in the audience, has spent a formidable amount of his life growing up in Cape Girardeau and calls Cape Girardeau home. And that's because of this community. And so I can't say enough that I'm grateful to this community for what you've done for me, what you've done for our police department. And then to the officers, I can't thank y'all enough for trusting me and supporting me even when I make bad decisions. And my command staff, I appreciate that I have a command staff that when I make bad decisions, would come in my office and tell me, hey, you made a bad decision. But we could do that with each other. And so I'm very thankful to all the men and women in the Cape Girardeau Police Department. And I said my command staff, actually, there's one person who was usually the first one in my door to tell me I was making a bad decision. And that's my administrative assistant, Sarah, who is really the real police chief in Cape Girardeau. But again, I'm grateful for this opportunity. Cape Girardeau is my home. I'm still keeping a residence here, so you'll still see me around town. But if you ask me anything about crime in Cape after the 24th, I'm just gonna tell you I don't know. But thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. And I leave you in very good hands with the premier law enforcement agency in Southeast Missouri, and never doubt that you have that here in Cape Girardeau.
Chief, if you would come up over here. And I'd like to ask his command staff or other officers who are here, if you'd like to come up and participate in a picture with the chief. Come on up, please. Yes, please. And those in the audience, family and friends, if you'd like to come up as well. We're going to need to scoot over this way.
I'm not in uniform, so can
Yeah.
Good enough.
All right, and would family like to come up? Yep. Thank you all very much.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. So much.
Proud mama. Thank you for being here. I forgot to give that to you. All right, well, that is many, many years of professionalism and expertise that we are saying thank you and goodbye to. Don't go far. All right. Next, communications and reports. Council? Anything from council? No? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to items for discussion. First, is there anyone who wishes in the audience to appear as an advisory board applicant? If so, you may come up and introduce yourself. Podium. Anyone? Okay, don't see any. Moving on then, we have the Planning and Zoning Commission report.
Good evening, Mayor, Dr. Haskins, Council. I've got our report from Scott Blake, who was not able to be here today. 4 different items from our last meeting I'll go over. Feel free to stop me if you guys got any questions while I'll go through them. First item on the agenda, 601 North Kings Highway. It was a signage exception. The request exception to install 2 freestanding signs along the North Kings Highway frontage. Recommendation approval with the condition that no freestanding sign be allowed on the North Broadview street frontage. The property has frontage on North Kings Highway and Broadview back there behind it, directly north of, forget the name of the hotel right there, Townhouse Inn. And vote count, 7 in favor, 0 in opposition. Any questions? Okay. Item number 2, 3320, 3324, 3328, 3332 Campster Drive, another sign exception. The request was an exception for a 280 square foot freestanding sign with a height of 87 feet along Interstate 55. This, familiarize yourself with a little bit. It's a Drury Southwest property right just south of Lions or White Castle, right there by the current Drury Inn and Suites, the new little retail center they've got. The recommendation was approval with the condition that the maximum area of height for the Campster sign freestanding shall be adjusted as follows. The maximum area shall be 20 square feet. Maximum height shall be 8 feet. We basically, it was a give and take between making sure that they captured all the normal square footage that you would for a few signs on that property into really giving them the one sign that they actually really wanted. So vote count, 7 in favor, 0 in opposition. Any questions? Next item, 1820 Oak Hills Drive, fence extension or fence exception, I apologize. The request was an exception to install a 7-foot high fence, black aluminum picket fence in the rear and side yards. This was a pretty simple one. Guy had a 4-foot chain link fence, having some issues with deer in his backyard. No issues with the neighbors at all either. That was recommended for approval and it came in 7-0, 7 in favor and 0 in opposition. Questions? Last one was a Park Hills or Park West Hospitality Center number 3 subdivision record plat. This plat creates 1 lot subdivision at 205 South Mount Auburn next to the Hampton Inn. Property is just south of the Strip Center, right by Hampton. It's a Mid-America Hotels property there, old Universal Health and Fitness for people that have been here for a while, that property, combining that into one facility for future development, or one property for future development. Again, 7 in favor, 0 in opposition. Any questions? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Appreciate it. All right, next we will have a discussion of the Starview Groves Tax Credit Project and the Starview development. Is anyone here to, yes, discuss?
Hi, I'm Brad Slosser. This is Pete Ransel. I'm the owner of Starview Development. And I think we completed, phase 1 about a year and a half ago, and we're proposing doing a phase 2, 44 unit, 22 single house duplex. So we're here to, get your, hopefully get your approval. So Pete, go ahead.
I just think it's a great site. I've said that before. I've appeared before you many, many times. This location is ideal for workforce housing and what we're trying to do. I like all the amenities around it. As Brad said, we did a phase 1 a couple years ago, 32 units, very successful, got a huge waiting list. We came back in last year, asked for a resolution of support, did not get funded by MHDC. My part of the job is to figure out what MHDC is really looking for and what would get this funded. We've come back this year, instead of the 2-story walk-up building, we're going to do the single-story duplex. We're offering at the end of the compliance period, there's a 15-year tax credit compliance period. At the end of that compliance period, we're going to do home ownership. The tenants are going to have a right to buy that unit. They're going to buy it at a discount of an appraised value. We're going to tie it into MHTC's first-time home buyer program, which allows basically down payment assistance and a below-market interest rate. So we're really excited about this. We think with those added features, we get additional points. MHTC's on a point system now. We're trying to outpoint our competitor.
Okay. Any other questions for these two gentlemen?
I like your two-part. I serve as commissioner in MHDC. So I like the point of the portability and them a chance to have ownership. So I like to connect with you afterwards to make sure, because I've been talking to the organization to make sure we get venues like this for people, a place that's affordable and nice. So thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say, I liked this last year and I like it again, so thank you for coming back.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And lastly, we will have the consent agenda review. Dr. Haskin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We added 4, 5, 6, and 7 for your review. Number 4 would be requesting to execute a lease agreement with BNSF Railway Company for the storage and maintenance facility there downtown. Number 5, as mentioned earlier, Starview Development is seeking the tax credits for, the development that was mentioned earlier. I think it's going to be an exciting project. I look forward to it. It's sort of a new concept, I think. I haven't heard that before, but I'm looking forward to the end result there. Number 6, Council, we're asking you if we could prepare and proceed with the demolition of several dilapidated structures. I know, again, we've talked about this over the last couple of years about investing and putting more money into the demolition fund so that we can start taking down some of these dilapidated structures. It's also a safety issue as well, as we all know. And finally, number 7, we're ready to talk to you about the annexation petition for property located at 560 Silverado Trail, and of course, setting a public hearing as it relates to that. Okay, Mayor, that concludes the consent review.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move into regular session and begin with the call to order and the roll call. Mr. Taylor.
Mark Bliss.
Here.
David Cantrell.
Here.
Stacy Kinder.
Here.
Rhett Pierce.
Here.
Dan Presson.
Here.
Tameka Randle.
Here.
Nate Thomas.
Here.
All right, Council, we have an agenda before us. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Presson, Mr. Bliss, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, then all in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Agenda carries. We don't have any public hearings tonight. We do have a consent agenda. Mr. Young, would you please read that?
Bill 2469, an ordinance amending Chapter 30 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cape Girardeau, Missouri by changing the zoning of property located at 2530 Marshall K Drive in the city and county of Cape Girardeau, Missouri from R1 to R4. Bill 2469, ordinance amending Chapter 30 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cape Girardeau, Missouri by changing the zoning of property located at 2530 Marshall K Drive in the city and county of Cape Girardeau, Missouri from R1 to R4. Bill 2468, an ordinance accepting an easement, Catholic Charities of Southern Missouri, Inc. for property located at 475 North Main Street in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Bill 2468, an ordinance accepting an easement from Catholic Charities of Southern Missouri, Inc. for property located at 475 North Main Street in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Bill 2470, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a lease agreement with BNSF Railway Company for a storage and maintenance facility along McClomsey Street in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Bill 2471, a resolution of support for the proposal from Starview Development LLC for the Starview Groves Housing Development in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Bill 2472, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a demolition contract with JAC3 Contracting LLC for the demolition of buildings at various locations in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Bill 2473, a resolution acknowledging receipt of annexation petition for property located at 560 Silverado Trail and setting a public hearing regarding the proposed annexation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Young. Council, we have a consent agenda before us. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Presson.
Second.
Second, Ms. Randle, thank you. Any further discussion? No, items on the consent agenda do not garner discussion.
Make any sense. My house is going to be teared down.
I'm sorry,
No one knows
ma'am.
about it, and there's no chance for me to come talk
I'm
about
sorry,
it.
ma'am.
How can
Well,
that be possible?
well,
How can I
that's,
live in a city where I pay my taxes and my house can be knocked down? This will be
Ma'am.
the third time.
okay, ma'am, during this part of the meeting, the consent agenda items are not up for
I
discussion.
understand
Your
that, but
process
when could I have discussed it?
in the past few years.
No,
Yeah,
no, there's
no.
never been an opportunity.
Well, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
No, I'm afraid that's not true. We can talk after the meeting if you'd like to further. All in favor then of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That agenda carries. No items were removed from the consent agenda. We do not have any new ordinances tonight, nor any appointments to make. We had one person register for, to make a comment. That person, Leslie Washington, yes, she's here. And as always, the public is allowed 3 minutes to make a comment. This is not a time when the council engages in discussion with the public, but please, Ms. Washington.
My name is Leslie Washington. I reside at 315 North Frederick Street here in Cape Girardeau. And I'm speaking as a survivor of gun violence and domestic violence. The shooting that took place early yesterday morning is very triggering, very disheartening, very frustrating, very irritating. And it happened 2 doors down from a friend of mine's business. And it's hitting too close to home. That's 2 or 3 blocks from my apartment. And I am just frustrated, and we need to do better. We need to work together. We need to curb the gun violence because it's happening all too often. It is the norm here in Cape Girardeau now, and we just need to find some resolution, some resolve. I go back to school in a month, and I do a lot of walking, and it's just like, I don't want to walk outside. I don't want to go outdoors because I don't know if this is going to happen to me or any of you or anyone else in the community. And it's just hit home too much. And we just have to do something about it. And that's it.
Thank you for your comments.
Mhm.
All right. With that, then we have no other business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Presson? Mr. Cantrell, any further discussion? All in favor then of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance.